Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It is 5:31 a.m. Come through. Come sit down. Welcome. It is 5:31 a.m. on Thursday, September 30th, 2021. Where we are always feeling so good, feeling so much better, objectively, every weekday morning. Now, how is it possible to feel better objectively with the help of your only no-nonsense podcast, brought to you through the Best Feeling Network, and the help of your only body from the inside out, baby, using a few body magic tricks, moving our self-awareness here and there to feel so good from the inside out. Good morning, everybody. Are you ready to wake the worlds up physically, spiritually, mentally, and then physically again with your host Herbie here on Pow Go On? It is Thursday. Wherever you are, whether you are joining us right now or whether you are listening to us in the future, whether you are bumping us in a car or you are bumping us in a bar or you are bumping us in the loud stadium of a sports stadium or whether you are bumping us in Discord. Where are you right now? Have you taken some time to be self-aware today, to stretch your self-awareness? If not, welcome, come through. I invite you to join us in interacting with the world in a new way today. If this were a simulation and we were to hold our controllers properly, we would pretend that there is a lit candle in front of our lips, like it's your birthday or something. A lit candle in front of your lips. that you're trying to not put out. And it's just flickering in front of your lips, but you're trying to not put it out. You're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling as we are holding our controller properly to interact with this world in a new way, in this new world order. We are simply pretending that there is a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out. We're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling in the ways that we normally would. Just placing into your awareness this candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And if your body decides to move, allow it to move, simply observe. We don't need to judge as we're holding this controller properly. However, we can observe. Does my body feel like changing? Does this feel uncomfortable to pretend that there's a candle in front of my lips that I'm trying to not put out? And as we're holding our controller properly every day on Palgo On and supercharging our mornings, we might observe how our body reacts to the idea that remembering that the tip of our tongues indeed want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Indeed, as this candle flickers in front of your lips and you are trying to not put it out while not thinking about exhaling or inhaling, simply placing into your awareness that there is a candle, a lit candle in front of your lips, trying to not put out. And remembering that the tip of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Again, that is the tip of our, say it with me, tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. But don't just take my word for it. How does it feel for you? How does it look for you? How does it feel for you? Today we will be talking about how we do not see ourselves. As in, we are vampires, Herbie? We do not see ourselves in the mirrors. We are vampires? Is that what you are suggesting? Or do we mean that we do not see ourselves as a country? Or do we do not see ourselves as a human race? Or do we do not see ourselves as individuals? Perhaps all of these are composed or constructed from individuals. In fact, our entire reality is constructed by the cooperation of many, 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 many individuals. Do these individuals not see themselves? How could an individual not see themselves when they can see themselves in the mirror? And is it possible that our country here in the West, in the United States, also does not see itself? In the same way that we do not see ourselves the most throughout our days, as we're not always looking into a mirror, right? We are looking at mostly other things that are not us for most of us, aside from extreme narcissists. But even then, most often probably are not looking at themselves, for they know they love themselves already. We do not often see ourselves. And is it possible that this country does not see itself in the same way that we do not often see ourselves, as we are usually the face looking outwards and not looking at our own face? The same way that we do not use our name nearly as much as other people use our name when they call us and stuff. Is it possible that the United States does not see itself as much as the world sees the United States? Is it possible for the world to see us more than we can actually see ourselves? We'll be right back after this short break to discuss this from every scope, from individual to the entire population of the world. As we stretch our self-awareness like a muscle. Are you feeling the front of your shins today? We'll be right back. Is it possible that we do not see ourselves as much as other people see us? Probably as much as it possibly is that way in real life, as most people are always looking at us and we are often looking at the world, not ourselves. We talk a lot about logic in life today. Would it be most logical to learn about yourself through the lens of just yourself? Or through the lens of people who are looking at you more often than yourself? It would not be illogical to think that we learn the best about ourselves through other people. As other people are constantly using our names more than we are using our own names to call us. They're constantly looking at our face more than we are looking at our own faces. In a lot of ways, we learn about ourselves through other people. In a lot of ways, we cannot see ourselves in the way that other people see us. What are some of those consequences? What are some of the consequences of not being able to see ourselves but having to rely on in order for us to orient ourselves? A problem that lies mainly in communication between rather understanding messages that are being sent and whether or not messages are even being sent by other people regarding who this person is, regarding descriptions about who this person is, about what you want to know. The hardest part about learning things about the world, about yourself from other people, is decoding the message, as other people already have their own needs and concerns in which you must place yourself into the shoes of to begin to understand the message in which they are sending you. High chance of misunderstanding other people, so is there a high likelihood that what you are learning about yourself is incongruent with what you actually are? Yes. Is there still something to learn about yourself from other people in the world? Yes. Can you learn about it by using your own lens in their shoes? Probably not, as we must put our lens into their lens to understand what message they are sending, for they did not send that message with your lens in mind. However, they sent that message with their own lens in mind. So if we are to understand ourselves from the world as this gold mine of information about ourselves, as is always looking at us more than we are looking at ourselves most often, we are to understand the world. We are to understand how to speak the world's language. We are to understand that we must put our lens into their lens to even understand these messages in the first place. Not as high reliability rate as going directly to the source of a human being, the understanding message, which is from within. However, we do not see ourselves very often. How can we? Why would we want to see ourselves? To create a relationship with ourselves so that we can improve ourselves in certain ways that we wish to improve. We might see that we're lazy, so we might see what's causing us to be lazy, like we're eating too much starchy food, and we might see the reasons why we're eating starchy food, or we are feeling lonely or depressed, or feeling like we cannot overcome some kind of internal suffering, so we distract ourselves. We cannot see ourselves in those moments because in those moments, who wants to see yourself being weak? So we turn the blind eye. No one wants to see yourself weak, yet you're the only one who sees all your weakness. Despite the world seeing you more than you see yourself, we see the actions of what we do more than anybody else, and we are constantly confronted with all the times that we messed up, all the times where we've turned a blind eye to something that we knew that we shouldn't have done because it was a moment of weakness. And in moments of weakness, perhaps we're weak in also observing ourselves, which can be excused because guess what? It was a moment of weakness. Perhaps it is possible that we do not see ourselves. For in those moments of weakness, perhaps we turn blind eyes, for we are not always proud of what we do in our moments of weakness. And yet we see what we do more than anyone else sees what we do. Yet they see us and our face more often than anything else. Peculiar. We are constantly confronted with our own decisions and actions, and yet we cannot see ourselves. Why? Maybe because these actions do not necessarily jive or are congruent with what we want to create for ourselves, with what we want to envision ourselves as, with the image of ourselves that we envision ourselves. Perhaps it does not fit the narrative of us being lazy. Perhaps it does not fit the narrative for us to be selfish. Perhaps it does not fit our own narrative for us to be angry. So perhaps we do not see ourselves when we do any of those things. Do we do any of those things throughout life, though? Of course we do. Perhaps we do not see them because we feel like maybe we cannot handle seeing them, for it does not fit our narrative. How could we handle seeing them? Perhaps holding this controller properly wherever you are, whenever thou art. Whether you are at the beach or whether you are at the park. Are there some birds that we hear? As you let us blend into the symphony that is your life around you, never getting lost in the words, allowing the words to go in one ear and out the other, of course, all the time on Padawan, and honoring us with the honor of being placed right into the symphony that is your awareness all around you. Why could we not see ourselves? Why would it be that we might not see ourselves? Well, aren't we the only ones that see all of the downfalls, all of the follies that we do? Is it a little bit too much to handle sometimes? How could we handle when no one told us how to hold the controller properly? How are we going to hold the controller properly to flush away all these feelings of being unable to overcome? Whether they become the overcoming the feelings of embarrassment, of doing something embarrassing, like running into a wall, or perhaps lying when you felt like you were trapped, or perhaps being selfish when you felt like there was a scarcity of resources, a scarcity of love. Do we sometimes blind ourselves to ourselves when it does not fit the narrative because we felt like we could not handle the embarrassment, the shame, anger, the doubt? But without seeing ourselves, do we know how far we progressed? Are we able to feel satisfied? Are we able to feel proud of ourselves if we are not able to see ourselves in our saddest moments? If we turn a blind cheek to those saddest moments, if we are not able to see ourselves in our saddest moments, which is completely understandable. Who wants to see yourself in your saddest moments? It's not something you're proud of. But when progress is made in a better direction, how can you be proud of it if you forgot or if you did not see yourself in those moments to compare now? Comparison might be the enemy of happiness. But when it comes to the relationship to the self, it may be an ally to happiness. The spirit may be an ally. As you are in a present moment of improvement, a velocity, a state of movement, as opposed to a state that is just in a different spot than another state, but it is a state of a different kind of movement. And the different kind of movement might be the tip of the tongue wanting to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth so that the shame, the embarrassment, the doubt might not feel like shame and embarrassment and doubt. Or they might feel that way, but you might feel like you are able to more observe, sit and observe as it happens to you. It happens and it passes through you. But you are not held down by it. You're not beholden to those feelings of embarrassment, shame, fears of abandonment, pain. Oftentimes we blind ourselves when those feelings happen because we are feeling like we are unable to handle it, so we cannot see ourselves. If we are in pain all the time, then are we ever seeing ourselves then? We'll be right back. Yeah, go on. we sometimes blind ourselves to ourselves when we are in pain? Well, of course we do. Who wants to expose yourself to yourself when you're doing something you're not proud of? Who wants to remember those moments in which you lost your cool? And furthermore, even in the body, when there's a pain in our left arm or a pain in our left leg or something, in our knee, don't we blind ourselves to that pain because we feel like there's nothing else we can do about it? We feel like we can't overcome it. We just have to let it do its thing. And so we blind ourselves to a particular part of us that is painful until the pain seems to go away. Don't we blind ourselves to ourselves? Don't we blind ourselves from ourselves when we are acting in pain? Well, of course we do. Who wants to have that at the forefront of their cerebral cortex? Who wants to have that at the forefront of their thoughts? These memories of shame about themselves. So we blind ourselves to ourselves when we are in pain. Let's say you live in a world where you are always in pain. And do you ever see yourself? Herbie, why does it matter if we ever see ourselves? I don't care if I see myself. I have a mirror. Why do I need to see myself in moments of pain? Well, how often do you feel that you are in moments of pain? How often are you in moments of pain? And so if you blind yourself during your moments of pain, how often do you see yourself? If we are always in pain, some might say we are always in pain, so if we blind ourselves to ourselves when we are in pain, whether it be depression, feelings of abandonment, fear, physical pain, doubt, embarrassment, there might be some who say they're always living in pain. So if we blind ourselves to ourselves while we are in pain, do we ever really see ourselves? And why is it an issue if we do not see ourselves? Well, don't we want certain interactions with the world? Don't we want the world to receive us a certain way? Well, what's the fastest way to frustration? Possibly communicating to the world that you want that you want such and such amount of love, that you want such and such amount of riches from the world. Well, what's the most frustrating thing is for the world to be receiving a totally different message from what you believe you are sending. When we are in pain, we do not see ourselves. If we cannot see ourselves, how can we be sure that we are sending the message that we are trying to send? How can we be sure that it is the world misunderstanding us and it is not us missending the message? And so you might say, well, Herbie, the world should bend to me. Well, when it does not, what should we then do? We can't continue to do the same thing over and over, that which has received bad results. We can try to reach that insanity. Or we can go after what we want and understand how to get what we want. And understand that the world speaks a certain language to get what you want. And that language certainly, just like every other language, rests in authenticity, such that both parties can be sure that the messages are being communicated properly, as it's never just about the language, but the message is being interpreted, the message is being communicated, right? As we all know. As we all know. Why might it be a bad thing for the world to not see you? Well, it might be frustrating to be sending messages to the world and find out the world has been getting totally different messages. Imagine that through texts. You've been saying, hey, where are you? And they've been receiving, I'm going home now. And so you never rendezvous with you and your dreams, you and the world, you and your lover, you and your parents, you and your friends, you and your child, you and yourself. You might be sending, I'll be there in 5 minutes, and the message that they receive is, I'm going home right now. Why is it important to see ourselves? So that the message that we want to send, for example, I'm going to be there in 5 minutes, does not get received as, I am leaving here and I'm going home right now, but instead is received by the world as, I'm going to meet you in 5 minutes. So that even if the world says no, or even if the world says yes, whether or not you get your feelings met or satisfied, or whether your feelings are hurt and destroyed, it comes from the goodest good of all things, which is the truth, authenticity. Why? So even if it is bad, you can now make a proper decision to veer, whether towards or away from something, using proper information and not ambiguous information, so that you are not trapping yourself in more quicksand. Using disambiguity, using truth, using the ability to see the truth. Impossible when we are blinding ourselves to ourselves, when we are blinding ourselves to the truth, which can only be interpreted from the self, which we cannot blind ourselves to when we are in pain. Or you can do whatever you want, or suffer and die should you want to. Do anything we want. Do anything what we want. Do anything we want. But seeing ourselves. Seeing ourselves. How do we see ourselves? How do we go about seeing ourselves? If we do not see ourselves in moments of pain, how do we see ourselves? Will we overcome that pain? How do we overcome that pain? Whether it be embarrassment, shame, doubt in yourself, feelings of abandonment, feelings of resentment, those moments where you get tunnel vision and your anger just takes over. We're not so proud of those moments. How do we go about seeing ourselves in those moments, so that we can be honest with ourselves, so that we can be honest with the world, so that we can understand what happened, so that we can get closer to what we want? Screw your feelings, screw our feelings. We want riches. We want to do great things. We want our dreams to be fulfilled. We want that amazing relationship with ourselves. We want that amazing relationship with our design. We want that relationship with your career. You want that amazing relationship with that family. You want that amazing relationship with that person. We begin learning about what we want to do. Using false information. Using false information only if we allow ourselves to get tunnel vision and not see ourselves during those moments of anger, resentment, fear of abandonment, trauma. Not being able to see ourselves is a surefire way to get misinformation, so that when we continue our journey towards what we want, we make sure that we go on the wrong path. How do we ensure we get on the right path? By always seeing ourselves, so that we can get both sides of the equation to reduce the amount of variables. Get a high amount of success rate. Get out there and be awesome. How do we do that? Be able to see ourselves during pain, probably. Why do we ever stop seeing ourselves during pain? Maybe we feel like we can't handle it. How do we go about handling it? Well, maybe we pretend that there's a candle lit in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And you're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling. There's just a candle, a lit candle in front of your lips. It's just flickering there. And remembering that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. The back 1/3 of the tongue being vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down. If you would just say it with me, even if it's just in your head, the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down, up and down. Even if it's just in your head, one more time, say it with me. Back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. Up and down, up and down. Even if it's just in your head, one more time, I invite you, I challenge you, say it with me one more time. Even if it's just in your head, the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Felt like we could not handle seeing ourselves during those moments of disappointment in ourselves. Let's deal with that. Let's deal with that. Let's hold that controller properly and let's deal with that. Let's see ourselves. We'll be right back. Here on Pago On. Are we able to see ourselves? Are we able to see ourselves? Are we able to see how we react differently to somewhat seemingly same stimuli to different days? Are we able to see what is bogging us down? Are we holding that controller properly today and stretching our self-awareness however you are, wherever you are? Wherever you are, if you please would pretend with me that there's a candle in front of your lips. The tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And that the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down. Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the show. It is 6:04 a.m. on Thursday, September 30th, 2021. It is another Truth Hurts Day, everybody. Welcome back. Come through, come through. Have a seat on your sit bones, and remember, if you would, say it with me, even if it's just in your head. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. Say it with me. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. What weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front? What the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front? What? Yeah. breaking down misconceptions that society has placed into us about ourselves. Perhaps our families, perhaps our friends, perhaps our own eyes have misconceived the way our body is functioning. You might look at the spine and think, that's a spine. We place our weight onto the back of the spine. I place my back onto the wall to get a straight spine. I place the back of my spine onto the bed to lie down and sleep. The back should be straight. However, the larger parts of the spine are the front of the spine. The weight-bearing portion of the spine actually are the front. And your weight does not get delivered down into that singular tailbone. However, your weight does get delivered down through the front, the weight-bearing portion of the spine, and then bow out, boom, into your weight. Your weight is then delivered, boom, equally into these rainbow arches in your pelvic bone, not into the singular tailbone. And how does that feel for you? Do not just take my word for it or anything on this podcast. Welcome back. Do not take any of these words. Do not take any of my word for it, but how does it feel for you? Give it a shot and see how it feels for you. And if you don't like it, go back to doing whatever you want and see how it feels for you. How would you be able to see that if we do not have a clear view of ourselves? Today is the Truth Hurts Day again. Every Thursday, guys. Every Thursday is the Truth Hurts Days here on Pagawan, where we discuss some possibly tough pills to swallow. Only tough pills to swallow if we were not remembering perhaps that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And while we are also perceiving that there's a candle not just in front of my lips, but in front of your lips, in front of every human being's lips, we are perceiving that there's a candle in front of it. Flickering candle that they're trying to not put out. Their spirit's trying to not put it out. And the spirit of their attitude is trying to not put it out. As they are leaving their swallowing muscles alone, anchoring the tip of their tongue to the back of the bottom front teeth, remembering the back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical. Take your time. Do not feel rushed. Simply moving our awareness around. It's okay if it feels like your awareness doesn't want to sit in one place. Rotating from the tip of the tongue wanting to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Rolling back to the back 1/3 of the tongue being vertical. Back forward again, remembering the candle in front of the lips that we're trying to not put out. As we are observing our sense of self. We're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling. We are just simply observing our sense of self. Why? To hold our controller properly. In this life, in this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath, we want to hold our controller properly in this body of ours to ensure that we are all being aware of the same reality, becoming aware of the same world that we live in, interacting with it in the same way so that we can understand the messages in which we're actually sending to each other. Because as you know, it is not the objects, it's not the literal words in which we are beheld into. It is not the literal words that we love, but rather the meanings behind the words that are being said, as in how the words are being said, where the words are being said, when the words are being said, all the context, all that kind of stuff. You know the deal. We want to understand how to decode and understand and register the messages between everybody the same way you would understand the messages of a familiar friend. You ever notice how when you're speaking to a stranger or someone who you are less familiar with, you are less likely to take what they're saying as jokes, as you are not necessarily sure of which mindset they're in. So we are not sure in what their words are meaning. As our mindsets and what people know about our mindsets severely affect how they understand the message, what they understand the message to be. And so when we do not see ourselves, do we not Do we not blind ourselves to the moments in which we are sabotaging our own message and making our message hard to read? When we are blind to ourselves. Why would we be blind to ourselves? When we are in pain, or when we are in moments of disappointment with ourselves, when we feel hopeless with ourselves, when we feel like we do not want to remember this moment, we do not want to carry this spirit of ourselves into future versions of ourselves, we blind ourselves to ourselves. For we feel like we cannot handle the consequences of this disappointment, this version of us in which is not aligned with the version that we want to be in the future. We feel like we cannot overcome or compensate or pay back what it is that we are ashamed of, so we turn a blind eye to it. Well, when we turn a blind eye to it, do we not also turn a blind eye to the possible connections with whatever consequence came next? The world becomes chaos. What you do does not seem to affect the world. Why? Because we cannot even see what it is that we are doing. What relationship can we even draw between us and the world when we cannot see ourselves and what we're doing to even begin to understand what correlation there is between what we are doing and what the world is giving to us, what we are receiving from the world? So how much are we in pain? How often are we in pain? How often do we describe ourselves to be in pain? How often do we describe ourselves with phobias, syndromes, illnesses? Disorders. How often do we describe ourselves with those? So how often are we in pain? How often do we describe ourselves to be in pain? How often does our spirit admit to ourselves that we feel like we feel that we are in pain? How often do we perceive ourselves to be in pain? So how often do we blind ourselves to ourselves? So how often do we blind ourselves to pathways towards what we actually want? Why did we blind ourselves to ourselves? Because we felt like we could not handle the consequences? Well, how about we handle these consequences by pretending there's a candle in front of the lips that we're trying to not put out? Don't think about exhaling or inhaling. Just think about the candle that we're trying to not put out. Every human being in their design, in their awareness, they're pretending there's a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And they're leaving their swallowing muscles alone as they do so, remembering that the tip of their tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front of their teeth. No matter what vowel they're saying, no matter what consonant they're saying, the tip of their tongue always wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front of teeth. No matter what vowel, no matter what consonant you're saying. And in order to overcome feelings of depression, feelings of abandonment, feelings like pain, feeling that we are always in pain, feeling that we are always afflicted, we are remembering that the back 1/3 of our tongue is vertical, up and down to deal with this affliction. Should we have a better relationship with being able to help ourselves with this affliction from within, this embarrassment that we can get, this shame that we can get, this pain that we can feel in our lives that we feel out of control with? If our relationship with ourselves was one that we could actually rid ourselves of this feeling, would we have a better relationship with ourselves or a worse relationship with ourselves? Would we have lower confidence or higher confidence? We'll be right back here on Pow Go On to take a look at ourselves, where we cannot see ourselves on the Truth Hurts Day. And Pow Go On. Instead of boom, 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 we can't see ourselves, no way, no. We can't see ourselves on the Truth Hurts days. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. We are reaching this last quarter of the show here on the Truth Hurts days, where we are stretching our self-awareness on Padawan. Every weekday morning, it is 6:16 a.m. Wherever you are, whenever thou art, wherever you are, where are you right now? Maybe you're on the boardwalk, zooming down the sidewalk, saying what's up to all the homies. What up, homies? Maybe you are doing moonwalks in your own room. Maybe you are pacing around, writing something down. Today, I challenge you to enter this new world order with me and pretend with me that there's a candle in front of not just my lips, not just your lips, but everybody's lips in that person's awareness. Everybody's got their own little sprite, like their own little cursor in front of their lips. They have a candle, a lit candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. Everybody has their own in their awareness. I challenge you to enter this new world order with me and pretend, along with that candle that they're trying to not put out, that every human being is remembering that the tip of their tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front of their teeth as they're observing their sense of self. And how might that feel for you? Remember that this candle, you're not trying to put it out. You're not thinking about exhaling. You're not thinking about inhaling. You're just trying to not put it out. Remember that the back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical, up and down. Up and down, up and down. Again, the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. Say it with me, up and down, up and down. The back 1/3 of your tongue being vertical. One more time, say it with me, even if it's just in your head, up and down, up and down. Now, are we seeing whether or not that affects the body in a good way? Are we seeing how your body reacts to that? Are we seeing whether or not you are receptive to these ideas? Or are we seeing that you are generally very accepting of these ideas? Are we seeing ourselves then more? The whole world might be seeing our country more than we are seeing ourselves. Oftentimes it is often hard to see ourselves. Even the US right now being seen more from the outside world than from the inside world. Why? For we are in pain, and when we are in pain, we do not see ourselves. Depression epidemic in the West. Opioid epidemic. Basically, epidemic caused by politicians. Another one. Not just the disease, but in the way the disease is being handled. Most of all. We are in pain, and when we are in pain, we do not see ourselves, we do not look at ourselves. And the world can see us clearer than we can see ourselves right now. How do we begin seeing ourselves again then? If we hide ourselves from ourselves whenever we are in pain, whenever we see ourselves betray one another, whenever we see ourselves betray ourselves, whenever we see ourselves conveniently forget something or get too lazy to do something that we know we should be doing for ourselves. Every time we see ourselves slack off, do we not put that, do we not hide that away from our awareness to feel less shame about it? Do we not hide ourselves from ourselves because we feel like we cannot deal with the internal suffering of this embarrassment or this shame? When we cannot see ourselves, how can we take action properly towards the betterment of ourselves when we cannot see what we are, where we are, how we are, the condition of what we are. We have to be able to see ourselves. How can we see ourselves every time we get blinded by ourselves? Well, why do we blind ourselves? Well, we cannot deal with the pain. How do we deal with the pain? Let's hold this controller properly. I challenge you today to hold this controller properly, to deal with this pain, to enter this new world order where there's no such pain. I challenge you today to join me in pretending that there's a candle in front of every human being's lips that they place into their own awareness. There's a candle in front of their lips. It's just flickering there, and they're trying to not put it out. As they are remembering that the tip of their tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front of teeth. And they're not thinking about exhaling, or they're not thinking about inhaling. They just let this candle flicker in front of their mouth. Remember that the back 1/3 of everyone's tongues, it is just part of the human design that the back 1/3 of everybody's tongues is vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down. When we cannot see ourselves, do we not get hurt when we see our loved ones push us away? But when we cannot see ourselves, does it not hurt more to not be able to understand why they might be pushing us away? And when we can see ourselves, just like we've seen others in the past do wrong, when we've seen ourselves in the past and we do cringy things, when we cannot see ourselves, do we not spiral ourselves into a deeper hole of pain and suffering as we believe that we are not in control of how people are treating us? When we allow the way we treat others to push them to distances far beyond our reach, doesn't it frustrate you when you cannot see what you're doing wrong? Well, why might we not see what we are doing wrong? Perhaps because when we do wrong, we blind ourselves to ourselves. Why do we blind ourselves to ourselves? Because we cannot handle with the judgment of ourselves from other people, as we know the consequences is going to be no work done, no productivity, I'm going to lie in bed, be worthless. How can we instead deal with that pain so we no longer must blind ourselves to ourselves, so that we are no longer so frustrated with life as it consistently gives us unmatching results with what we feel like we are putting out? Will we order our body properly so that the pain can go the proper direction and we can watch our own lives like a movie and just observe? Remember to simply observe. Hey guys, I want to ask you today, are you remembering to simply observe? Hope you ask yourself today, are you remembering to simply observe? Are you remembering to simply observe? Observe whom exactly? Observe what exactly? Possibly ourselves on the Truth Hurts days. I want to thank you guys so much for coming through, whether you are on YouTube, Twitch, or you are on D Live, whether you come from Instagram, whether you come from Twitter, whether you come from TikTok. I want to thank you so much for coming through today. Whether you are from any of those platforms or whether you are a dear close friend, I want to thank you so much for coming through. Questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in comments. We'll get to them either beginning, midway, or at the end of the show. Or you can leave them on the videos. Please, I hope you share this with someone you love and know. I really appreciate all the things that we've been going through. All the support and love is very much appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. All the likes, shares, and subscribes are hugely appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. really helps us push forward here. Not like we're going nowhere. The destination is the journey, everyone, and that'll go on forever. Are you feeling the front of your shins? Felipe Mullen coming through. Thank you for those comments, those chats. You know, feeling the rainbow arches, and kind of looks like the infinity sign, you know? Rainbow arches forever. Thank you for the love and support. Appreciate it. Pagawan will be here only as long as human beings are around. Maybe only as long as the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. I think Pagawan will be here until the weight-bearing portion of the spine stops being the front. Hope you say it with me today. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. We appreciate all those donations, those lemons on D-Live. Thank you for all the shares, subscribes, or likes. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Talk to you very soon. Tomorrow on Freedom Fridays. Are you guys ready to feel so free? I challenge you today to join this new world order with me. Pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And everybody's lips that you're trying to not put out. Anchor the tip of the tongue to the back of the bottom of the teeth. Don't think about exhaling or inhaling. Just don't put that candle out. Remember that everybody's got a candle in front of their lips that you're trying to not put out. The back 1/3 of the tongue is vertical. Stay beautiful out there. Better than your morning wood. Feel without. And feeling so good from the inside out. I'm your host, Herbie. And this has been another Truth Hurts Days. It is 6:28 a.m. September 30th, 2021, Thursday, the Truth Hurts Days. We don't see ourselves, guys. We don't see ourselves, and the truth hurts, but the truth hurts so good. It's Baseline. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.